I request everyone, please be on mute. And wherever you have a question, there is an option to raise hand, or you can type your question in the chat box so that not everyone get uh, distracted by the noise or the background noise. So I'll start with the topic. The most common topic and most common question to everyone's relating to the income tax return filing. So, though the topic says that how to file ITR, and I'm not going to take you to a line by line of ITR form. I think most of us, or every one of you, are mature enough to understand the forms, what is mentioned and what is to be disclosed. So, I'll be focusing more on what are the common mistakes which we generally do while disclosing or while mentioning the details, or what are the normal or most common deductions that we miss out of claiming those. Third is there are certain items, there are common myths about certain disclosures and the return filing. So I'll be tackling those points. I'm sure even you guys do not want to have a feeding about the line to line disclosure or the how to fill the form. Rather than value addition can be only out of these topics. So let me start with the most common thing. Uh, Falgun, I think you'll have to make me the host so that I can share the screen. Hello, Falgun, are you there? I guess there is some problem with Falgun. Let me just try connecting.
How
Okay.
to record the session?
Yeah, Vijay, I'm
Session
there.
can be recorded only by the host, and not by anybody, any participant.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'll be covering important points like who all are required to file, what are the common myths around filing of returns, what are the advantages for filing return and filing return on time. Uh, Another thing is what are the prerequisites or checklist? How should we keep ourselves ready while preparing for it? So when we sit for the filing of return, so if you do it yourself, or if you are giving it to a tax consultant or a chartered accountant, what all things are required, bare minimum things, so that returns can be filed properly with all the required disclosures, and we do not miss out on anything. It applies not only in case of what details we need whenever you are doing it yourself, but these all details are required when you are giving it to a tax consultant or a CA, because unless and until you will share these details, he or she may not be in a position to file it properly. So that is the most important part of our webinar today. One another thing is the value addition out of this webinar is most overlooked tax deduction. So there are certain deductions. In fact, when I do it, or when new client comes to me and when I review his previous year returns, in 45 to 50% cases, they tend to miss out this deduction. So I have purposely selected this topic to be included so that you guys get most out of it. Then there are most common mistakes which we do while filing the returns, and the most important, the new, most happening topic. Everybody's talking about the new tax regime. That in this budget, our finance minister has proposed a different tax regime as compared to, and in fact, two simultaneous tax regime will be going on. So everybody is curious that which option shall we select, or which one is beneficial. So I'll cover that up on a very high level because it is for the current year, apart from the other topics. So moving forward, I'll so I talk about applicability. There is, I'll like to go to the next slide first. The very first myth which everyone has, that my TDS has already been deducted and I am not required to file my return. So, how many of you have this kind of a feeling that if I'm not required to pay tax, my TDS is already been deducted, I'm not supposed to file the return. So, I'll now move to the applicability. So, basic applicability is with respect to the threshold limit for the income. So, that's the most common thing. If the income is more than the threshold limit, we are required to file a return. It is 2.5 lakh for the current year, excluding for the senior citizen and the super senior citizen. That we'll see separately. I guess it is not applicable to any of the participants. In case of a super senior citizen, it's 5 lakh and senior citizen 3.5. So right now we are talking about the normal basic limit. Uh, Apart from the income criteria, there are other criterias as well. So it is also one of the myth. Only if I have the income more than taxable limit, then only I'll have to file return. However, in last couple of years, uh, due to a lot of tax evasion, and government has noticed that people are not disclosing income. However, their spending is not in proportion with what they have disclosed. So, apart from the basic exemption limit, they have given certain more criteria with respect to spending. Out of them, two most important criteria. One is foreign travel, which is very common. I should say which was very common. Maybe because of the corona, we don't see at least next 1 year that much of a travel. But yeah, so most common was a foreign travel. So if we spend uh, more than 2 lakh rupees on foreign travel, so that spending limit either, so spending it is applicable to an individual who is spending it. It is not necessary that it is to be spent for himself or herself. Even if you are spending it for your family members, it gets covered under overall remit. So, for example, if suppose you book a ticket for your son or daughter who wants to go abroad for studies, and if you have spent 1 lakh rupees in a ticket, another 1 lakh rupees to remit his fees, or the hotel book initial phase, they were the hostel accommodation or other accommodations are not in place. So you are spending on hotel accommodation. So overall spend, if you have spent more than 2 lakh in a foreign currency from your account, and even though you have your income less than basic taxable limit, you are required to file returns. Next is the consumption of electricity. This is generally applicable to the business people who are into the business and they consume electricity, not much to a salaried class, so I won't be talking about it much. Third is obviously, so a lot of people, so sometimes when one of my friend called up, he said that he got a call from his relative in London and they are asking to him to become a beneficiary and a partner in a company just for the namesake. So in this case, even if that person may not have income up to the extent of taxability, but if he has any interest in foreign assets, let it be shares or anything else, or a signing authority in a bank account, in those cases they are required to file ITR. They cannot do away that we don't have any taxable income and we are not required to file. So I'm sure I'm clear about it. Do you have any query or any concern on the applicability? So let's
Everyone
move
on
forward.
board. If there is anything, just you can ask the question. If there is anything, please come back.
Yeah, and if we miss out on any questions while talking, we might miss out on any questions. So we have a question answer session at the end of the presentation. So we will take it up then.
Okay.
Yeah. So going back to another important point is general myths with respect to the filing of returns. So most common, as I mentioned, if I don't have taxable, if my TDS is already been deducted, I'm not required to file return. So that's not true. So irrespective whether tax has been deducted or not, if your income, if you meet the criteria mentioned in the first slide, you are required to file return. Another thing is about the pending liability. A lot of people says I don't have any pending liability or any tax refund, so I'm not supposed to file return. So that's not true. Third is return, there won't be any tax penalty. However, in insert, so there is specified tax limit, and starting from last year, the government has imposed penalty for late filings. So there are, if you have income more than 5 lakh, and if you are not filing return within due date, you are there will be a penalty of 5,000 rupees up to December. That is for first 4 months, and then after 10,000. So whether you have a, even if you have a refund, then also this penalty will be applicable. So do not assume that if your tax has been deducted on a higher side, or if you have paid extra advance tax, there will not be any penalty if you file it late, which is not true. In any case, if you miss out on the due date, there will be a penalty applicable. Apart from that, gifts. So common gifts are not taxable. However, there is a limit. Gifts are exempt only up to 50,000 rupees, and gift received from a relative. So they have defined who all are relatives. So except for those, whatever gift has been received, those are all taxable. Another thing is exempt income. So even if you have exempt income like interest on PPF, dividend, so taxes are not applicable on those income, but you need to disclose that in the return. It is mandatory to disclose those in the return. Moving forward, a lot of people had two houses. Uh, Maybe they are one of the house must be a co-owned house. So even the co-owned house are considered as owned house. So in case if one of the house is vacant, in even in that case you need to pay tax on national rent. So there is a common understanding tax is applicable only on the income.
I'm sorry, there's a
However,
lot of disturbance, Mr. Abhishek. There's a lot of disturbance. I don't know. You are not very audible.
yeah, just hold on. I hope everyone is on mute, right?
Yeah, and
So,
also organizer or host will be having a permission to mute all others' mics. So you can please utilize that option.
Abhishek, I'll
can
mute
you
all.
mute
So just a
everyone?
moment, I'll unmute then. Hold on. So please, some of the people I'm noticing that they are unmuting. So please be on mute mode. Whenever there is thing, just raise your hand or just be in the chat section. I will take care of that. So please don't unmute yourself.
It is a humble request for everyone. Please keep yourself mute during the entire session. If you have any questions, you can type in the chat box. We'll be covering most of it.
And if in this case, what you call, I mean, I have noticed couple of guys, so I mean, I'll have to forcefully, have to vacate them. So please don't, I have to take stern action for this. So this is impacting our flow and consistency. Request to all. Please. Thanks.
Jai, can you please mute yourself? Jai? I guess,
Yes, Abhishek.
yeah. So I guess I was on the notional rent, taxability of notional rent. So wherever, if anybody is having more than one house, so this is applicable even if one of the house is owned by you and another you are a co-owner, even that becomes you become two house for the two owners. So in this case, if suppose another house you generally give it on rent, but for whatever reason you could not able to give it on rent, we need to pay rent on a notional income, notional rent. There are obviously certain relaxations available that we can discuss one to one, because I'm sure it is not applicable to most of the audience, but we can discuss it later on. Another important point that is missed out is with respect to, so these days a lot of people do have some or other exposure to the capital market, that is like share trading or mutual funds, and general individuals are in uh, impatient that market is going up, let's start buying, market is falling, let's start sell. So a lot of time it happens that we incur losses, and we believe since it is a loss, we are not supposed to disclose it in the return. However, it is mandatory to disclose it in your transaction, because what happens, your share broker and SEBI regularly reports the transaction to the income tax department. So if suppose you have a transaction crossing a particular threshold limit identified by the tax department, and if suppose you have not disclosed those transaction in your return, be ready that you'll be getting a notice from the tax department. So whether you earn profit or you incur losses, all your capital market transaction has to be reported in your return. This last point I have specifically added to this slide because most of the time, most of the people talks about that my refund is delayed because of my CA. So I just want to, on behalf of the entire tax consultant and CA fraternity, the CA and tax consultant do not have any say in your refund. So it's completely on the tax department. This is just on a lighter note to I've added this point. This is again advantages of filing ITR. So you must have read it at multiple places, but I'll be talking about 2 points. One is if you file your return on time, as I mentioned earlier, you will able to save penalty, which is there for delayed filing. And second is with respect to refund. So suppose, so these days under this scenario as well, and in fact since the time the tax department has digitized the refund process, so for most of the salaried people, they process refund immediately. I know my client has received refund as early as uh, 15 days, 20 days from the filing date. That doesn't mean it's a benchmark, but however, the filing return on time will definitely enhance the chances of getting refund earlier. That is one. And even due to this corona, government has announced that they are into a process that where they are processing all the refunds on a high priority, refund amount less than 5 lakh rupees. So one of the most uh, favorable thing to us to file the return on time is, so wherever there is a tax refund, we can get that tax refund on time. Second is with respect to carry forward losses. So carry forward losses, as I mentioned just 2 minutes back, that let's say in case of a share trading or mutual fund, if you have incurred some losses, there is a provision available in income tax. If you have incurred losses in current year and if you have earned profit in subsequent year, in the subsequent year, you are eligible to adjust the losses incurred in the prior years. And in that case, you are not required to pay tax on that profits. However, there is a condition attached to it that those losses of earlier years will be allowed to set off only if you have filed your return within due date, within the timeline given. Even if you have filed, we cannot argue that I have filed the returns. If you have filed it after due date, you cannot the carry forward losses benefit is not available. So these are the two main reasons where we should, apart from avoiding the penalty, returns has to be filed on time. These days, I think ITR has been very well be considered as income and address proof. So that is also one of the advantage. We'll move to the next slide, where as I mentioned earlier, that what are the perquisites and the checklist or the things we should be ready with before we start preparing or filing the returns. So one of the basic thing is linkage of Aadhaar and PAN number. The government has made it mandatory that Aadhaar and PAN has to be linked, though they have extended the time till 30th June due to this scenario. But for filing the returns, it is necessary that it is to be linked. Another point is, so we should have Form 16. In the absence of Form 16 salary slips handy. Details about interest earned from all the bank account or post office, cooperative bank, credit societies. So wherever you have parked your money as fixed deposit or it is lying in the bank account as a saving account, we need to consider interest earned on all the accounts. There is a common myth that in case of a FD or RD, interest will be taxable once it matures. But now, in most of the cases, bank must be deducting TDS on that interest, and when it gets reported to the income tax department. So generally, if as per the income tax record and as per our return, if there is a mismatch, they will definitely send you a notice. So there is a common, you can contact your bank and ask for the interest certificate in case of a FD and RD. For saving account, you must be having bank statement or a passbook. Just go through it. Generally, it's quarterly. In some of the bank, it's half yearly. So whatever interest has been credited, you need to sum it up all and consider for filing the returns. I have seen many people, they do not consider interest income in filing while filing their returns. Third is capital gain report. Ask your broker that they will send you capital gain report. Nowadays they send. So earlier it used to be a time that we had to calculate what is the capital gain. But now every broker has that facility. They generate capital gain report and send it to you. So do have that while filing your return. Second is details of co-owner. Wherever you have, as I mentioned earlier, house and you are co-owning it, you need to file details about the co-owner in the ITR. This is not required in case of if you are filing ITR 1, but in other cases, ITR 2, you need to file this detail. Rental and notional rent, we have discussed this topic. Apart from that, you'll have to have details of property tax paid during the year. This is required to claim the benefit. So as per income tax, whatever property tax you have paid, you can claim that from your income. So up to that extent, your income will not be, your rental income will not be considered as tax. Then moving to a home loan statement, it is important because home loan statement is it is the data from home loan statement is required at two places. One is for ATC, the principal repayment of home loan, and second is rental. So out of total EMI paid during the year, home loan statement mentions how much amount you have paid towards interest and how much amount you have paid towards principal. So interest amount is deductible from the income, rental income, or it is adjustable against your salary income in case of a self-occupied property. Another is details about the tax saving investments. The most importantly, if some of the investment proof are not considered by your employer while generating Form 16, you must have those details with you because they might not have considered, maybe you have not submitted the supportings or there was some error about it or you have made investments later on. Particularly for this year, investment due date has been extended up to 30th June. So if you have missed out on any investments under 80C or 80D, and if you have not done it till date, you still have time to do it till 30th June for at least for this year. Otherwise, in every year, it is up to 31st March only. So I request everyone, wherever you have not invested, invest it and take the benefit of tax deduction. All the bank accounts. So one of the requirement of ITR is we are supposed to report all the bank accounts along with their number and IFSC code. So keep those details handy. Obviously, relaxation is given with respect to dormant account. So those account details are not required to be added in the return. However, most importantly, any interest earned in those dormant accounts are required to be reported and tax is to be paid. So keep that in mind that if it is a dormant account, it is not required to be reported the details of that bank account. However, interest income must be reported. Moving to next slide, we have, as I mentioned, what are the common most overlooked tax deduction? I think this is the most important slide for everyone. As I mentioned that I've noticed that most of the people miss out on this thing. So NPS, due to the awareness program run by most of the mutual fund companies, nowadays everyone is aware that there will be an addition deduction up to 50,000 in case of if they invest in NPS. Other is preventive health checkup. So generally, when we take Mediclaim or health insurance policy, we consider them for deduction. So 80D is applicable for taking medical policy for ourselves or for parents with the limit of 25,000, 30,000, 60,000. And however, over and above the premium and subject to the overall limit, there is a ad hoc benefit available of 5,000 rupees for preventive health checkup. And it is applicable not just that you must be incurring it on yourself, it can be incurred on any family member. So do remember to claim this. I have seen 90% of the cases, it is people are not taking benefit out of it. These deductions are for the financial year 1920. I'm talking about none of the deductions are applicable in case of a new regime. It is applicable only for the old regime. Barring one or two, we'll come to that slide and we'll discuss that those points. However, these deductions are only for the old regime. So 80D will get additional benefit of 5,000 as preventive health checkup. I'm sure that we must be incurring 5,000 rupees minimum in a year for own family for doctor's visit, their consultation fees, normal medicines. So those are generally not covered. People do not claim that as a deduction. This deduction is available over and above the medical premium you pay. However, it is subject to the overall limit. Then donation. So another important thing is wherever you give donation, if it is a registered trust or a registered entity, you are entitled to a benefit, tax benefit of those donations. However, those donation related deductions are not captured in Form 16. Employer, while deducting TDS, they do not consider 80G. So this is the most important thing. If you have donated anywhere, do take out the receipts and keep it handy to file while filing the return to claim the benefit. It is not taken in the Form 16. So do not assume that my Form 16 has all the deductions. Another important part is Section 80GG, which says, so in most of the cases, all the employer gives you HRA, but there are cases where some of the people are using the rented premises. However, they are not getting any HRA in their salary structure. There is no component of HRA. Entire salary is either basic salary or allowances. In that case, there is a special provision available. If you cannot claim HRA under Section 10, then you can claim under 80GG, subject to the limit given, subject to maximum 60,000 rupees a year. Generally, in 90% of the cases, employer give HRA as a salary component. However, if it is not there, we can claim separately under 80. And again, this section is also not covered under Form 16. So you'll have to claim it separately in the ITR. Then there is a benefit for bank interest. So from last year, they have bifurcated bank interest in two parts. In case of a non-senior citizen, 10,000 is the benefit they have given against the bank interest, and it is only for interest from saving account. In case of non-senior citizens, benefit of 80TTA, benefit of interest deduction, is only against the amount of interest earned from saving bank account and not against the FD or any other interest. However, in case of senior citizens, this benefits available even for the fixed deposit interest or recurring deposit interest. So there is no restriction or no caveat with respect to the category of interest in case of a senior citizen. And the limit is also higher for senior citizen. They can claim deduction up to the extent of 50,000, and for non-senior citizen it is 10,000. One of the question is, do we need to submit document to claim 80D? So generally, most of the employer are not asking for supporting. However, so it differ from company to company. Generally, they take a declaration. However, I suggest that you keep all the supportings with you. So at the end of the year, whenever your employer asks for the supportings, you are in a position to give it. Then, with respect to 80D, so there are benefits given for a person with a disability, partial disability or severe disability. They have defined two categories and the extent of disability, subject to the condition that they will have to obtain a certificate from a government recognized medical institution. If a person is having some physical disability, those persons can claim tax benefit, not tax benefit, deduction for 75,000 or 1,25,000 based on the extent of disability. So this is the most important part of the entire webinar. So I would like to wait for 2 minutes here, and if somebody has any questions, we will discuss questions about this particular slide right now only. So we can do it at the end of the seminar as well. But if anyone has any questions on this slide, please you may ask or you can type in your chat.
I have a question for this 80TTA for other than senior citizens. So for senior citizens, then what is this 80TTP? Can you please explain again?
So in case of senior citizen, the limit available for deduction is increased limit. Instead of 10,000, they will get 50,000 as a deduction. And in case of a TTA, only deduction is available against interest earned from saving account. So if suppose a non-senior citizen has earned 7,000 rupees from a saving account and 25,000 from a fixed deposit, so total interest earned comes to 32,000. So in this case, non-senior citizen will able to claim only 7,000 as a deduction of income. However, in case of if the same applies to senior citizen, if senior citizen has earned 7,000 from saving account and 32,000 from fixed deposit account, he will able to claim 32,000 as a deduction. So this is the difference between senior citizen and the non-senior citizen.
Got it. Also, can we file old returns for senior citizen? Is
So
that allowed?
now, so old returns are allowed only up to 1 year period. So generally, return can be filed for previous year. So March 19 return cannot be filed till right now. However, due to Corona, the government has given extension till up to 30th June. So any return can be filed up to 1 year from the end of the year.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Here is
Yeah,
asking,
Abhishek.
yeah, please.
Sir, if I have invested in share market, but I haven't sold any of the shares which I bought it, then
Okay.
even though I have to declare it, because if I done a transaction, whether it may be profit or loss, in that case I need to file. Or if there is no transaction, then am I supposed to do?
So if there are no sale transaction, so taxability and reporting of the transaction is required only in case there is a sale of those securities. So only if you have bought it for investment purpose, it is not required to be disclosed. It is to be disclosed only when you sell those shares or mutual funds.
Okay, for example, in that case, in this year I have bought up shares for 75,000. So in that case,
Okay.
I will be declaring that as an investment in the current year. Okay. So
Okay.
in the next year, I might sold or I may not sell. Then if in that case,
Okay.
this will be continued as an investment for next year also, right?
Right. So I'll elaborate more on this example. One, if you have made an investment of 75,000 in this year, there is no
Okay.
requirement to disclose that in your ITR that there is an investment of 75,000. It's only in the books of account or in your record you maintain that you have an investment of 75,000. If suppose in the next year the value, fair market value went up to 85, 90,000, but you have not done any action, you have not sold it. So even in that case, you are not required to report unrealized profit, or the prices goes down, unrealized loss. You are not required to report that. It is necessary only when you sell. So if suppose out of 75,000, which whose value is 90,000 right now, and you have sold 50% of the shares, so you need to report 50% of the transaction. You have sold 50% of your shares for 45,000. So you need to report in your ITR that you have sold it shares of 45,000 and cost of those shares. So it is 50% of 75,000. So those 37,500 you will be reporting in ITR. This is the transaction details for that particular year in which you sell shares.
Okay, then I have one more doubt. For example, if I gain in that 25,000 as profit, but
Okay.
I keep the 25,000 as a share value, rest all I have taken it. I have withdrawn it from that end, from my investment. For example, 75,000 is my investment. 25,000 I have got profit. Okay. So what I planned is for that 25,000 which I earn profit, I keep it that one as a share. So remaining 75,000, I just withdraw it. So in that case, what will be the scenario?
So you will have to decide or calculate what proportion of the investment you have sold. So irrespective of the value of transaction value, it is number of shares. So if suppose you have purchased 100 shares for 75,000 rupees, and if your the value is 1 lakh right now, so you are withdrawing 75 share 75 shares, and
Yeah.
you are keeping it as an investment, you need to report it for 75 shares. So proportionate value of your shares. So while disclosing those transactions, only proportionate cost is to be considered. It cannot be kept that only my principal, my profit element is there, and total cost is already been adjusted against whatever I have sold. So that is not applicable. You need to consider proportionate cost only.
But defaultly from my broker, that will be reported as a profit only, no?
No, so even from your broker, it will become as proportionate profit. So it will not come entire 75,000 as a cost, because if you have sold 75,000, the cost of that 75,000 is not 70. That will come to 67,000 or 58,000. That way, proportionate cost to that units are to be captured.
Okay, that means you are telling that what in which cost I have
Sir,
bought. So that
sir, just a moment. Sir, can we take this in question answer session? Like we are going to have this. So let's first of all wrap up this session. So everyone, like, then we will have an inclusive session where we can take up this questions later on. Appreciate if you can appreciate
Sure.
this fact.
So I think PV, this is concluded, right? About the proportionate cost, or we can take this up separately, right? There is a question from Jinal. Please explain ATGG again. So as I mentioned, so there are possibilities in your salary component. You might not be getting HRA as your one of the component of salary. So generally, employer break the salary. If suppose you have a salary of 1 lakh rupee, they break it under various head: basic, HRA, CT compensation allowance, statutory bonus. So by any chance, if you are not getting HRA, however, you are still paying rent, ATGG allows you to claim benefit of rent paid within the limit specified therein. So Jinal, I hope it is clear to you now. Shall we move forward? So
There are some questions, Abhishek. So we can we take it postpone to later on?
Yeah,
Like
so
question answer
questions,
session.
as I mentioned, questions we will take only if it is relating to this slide. Otherwise, other questions we will take at the end of the presentation. So we'll move to next slide now. So another important part is most common mistakes, because when you make a mistakes, there are possibilities. One, you end up paying higher tax. Second, there is a possibility that your return is considered as default, return filed in default, and then there will be a penalty. It will not be considered as valid return. Another condition is if there are mistakes, because nowadays a lot of informations are getting reported to income tax department directly. So if suppose you have made some mistakes and so you have reported some X number, however income tax department has a Y number, so then definitely they are going to send you notices for the differences. So these are the most common mistakes which we should avoid. One is apart from whatever I mentioned, another is failure to claim deduction. So one is as I mentioned, there are certain deductions which are not claimed in Form 16, and we tend to miss out those deduction. And the one we have discussed just now. So that is a most common mistake. It comes on the top in the most common mistake. Second, another is wrong ITR form used. So there are different forms specified for different categories. For salary employee, it is basically two forms, ITR 1 and 2. So if you have transactions, so the categories of forms is based on the particular of nature of income you have. So you need to select the correct ITR form. Otherwise, it will be considered as default return. It will not be considered as a valid return. Another mistake is we tend to miss out investment for income from investment, including dividend, exempt income. If you have bought debentures, so there are a lot of debentures issue going on in the market, and then they pay interest on those debentures. So those debentures, even though those debentures are listed, that interest is not exempt, unlike dividend. So that, and in fact, from the next year, also dividend will also be taxable. So all the income from investment need to be reported, whether exempt or taxable. We generally tend to miss out those income. Another point is reconciliation between 26 AS or Form 16. So Form 26 AS is a form where you can see your tax credit. The person who were responsible to deduct TDS, they have reported your income and TDS in this particular. They have reported to income tax department, and it is available to check under this particular form. So a lot of places what happens, whatever we report, it does not reconcile with Form 26A or the Form 16. So we must avoid that mistake, because this data is already available with the tax department. So we must ensure that whatever we report, it matches with the data available with tax department. Then deemed income, as I mentioned earlier, if you have more than one house, you need to pay tax on the notional interest, notional rent, subject to the few relaxations available. Exempt income we disclose. One of the point is not clubbing income. During this digital era, lot of kids, because of their activities, are earning. Maybe not just the kids who star kids or the kids who are performing in a web series or a theater, but other children are also earning. So wherever your kids have some income, and if they are less than 18 years old, it is supposed to be their income is supposed to be clubbed with the parent who is having the highest income. So this is the point generally people miss out on it. In fact, there are a lot of children's plan offered by the mutual fund and insurance company, and some of them has the interest and dividend payout. So those policies or those plans we generally buy it in our kids' name, and those payout when it comes, it is supposed to be clubbed with our income. So in case of even if you have done some investment in your minor kids, this is the most common example of clubbing. There are other clubbing provisions as well, but most common is clubbing of income of minor child. So you need to consider this carefully. Another is not reporting all bank accounts. Generally, I've heard someone that I'll report only this. This is my primary account. I'm not going to report any other account, and I'm not covering any interest as well from the other accounts. So do not make this mistake, because now each bank account, your PAN is linked with each and every bank account. So tax department is already having that information. So some of the one of my client argued that if they already have information, why they are asking in a return. So we don't have any answer for that. But since they have asked, we will have to provide it. So ensure that all the bank accounts are reported. And another important point is verification. So once you file your return, especially for e-filing, you need to verify that there are two processes involved in this. One is filing of return. So when you submit it online, it just complete the submission process. Your process is not over. There are verification options available, e-verification as well as physical verification. So unless and until we complete the verification process, our return will not be considered as a valid return. It may be considered as default. So unless and until verification is completed, it will not be considered as return. So ensure after submitting your return, the verification, e-verification or the physical verification, you need to sign a report acknowledgement of that return and send it to income tax department. So it is most important. You'll have to do it. Then this is again just basic information. The basic exemption limit is for 2,50,000 for non-senior citizen, for between 60 to 83 lakh, and then more than 80 years old, 5 lakh is the basic exemption limit. This is the current tax regime. In the current tax regime, there is a benefit under Section 87A, which gives you additional benefit if your income is less than 5 lakh rupees. So in a way, effectively, if your income is less than 5 lakh rupees, there is no tax liability as such. However, tax rate. So another myth which I think I might not have covered. This is a popular thing where my income is less than 5 lakh. I am not required to pay tax. I have a benefit under 87A, and therefore I am not required to file return. But hold on, the limit specified for return is basic threshold limit, which is 2,50,000. 87A is a benefit available. So for identifying a basic exemption limit, it has to be before all the benefits and deduction available under income tax act. So do not assume that if your salary is less than 5 lakh but more than 2,50,000, you are not required to file return. That's a wrong understanding. Then let's have a bit about. I think we have overrun. I'm already 10 minutes overrun. But then I'll cover. Falgun, I'll take 5-10 minutes more. So this is the new tax regime. They've made it little complicated. However, they government wanted to give some benefit of reduced rate, and they end up making complicated. However, the people, few bunch of people will definitely have benefit out of it. May it may not be applicable to the large people, but it will definitely benefit few. So they have bifurcated tax rate between the slabs, right? If as you see, for the slab rate between 5 lakh to 10 lakh, it was earlier 20%, and under new scheme, it has been broken in two parts. Between first 2.5 lakh, it is 10%, and remaining 2.5 lakh 15%. So broadly, the new scheme is will benefit the people of a lower income group where their income is up to, let's say, 7 lakh 50,000 or 8 lakh rupees, and they do not have any tax saving investment. The main caveat under the new scheme is that the new scheme does not allow the deductions. So we have bifurcated the deductions here. The comparison about the deductions were available earlier and which are not available under the tax scheme. So we can see that all the deductions has been removed. None of the deductions are available except for deduction with respect to NPS, that is ATCCD. All other deductions are not allowed in the next new regime. So ideally, this scheme will be applicable only to the class of people who generally do not have tax saving investment. And on my personal opinion, when we start the only, so if suppose there is uncertainty like we are facing right now, state helping us right now, so we should not look for the new scheme option just because it has a lower tax rate. We should not avoid investing in the tax saving investments. Rather, we should invest in the tax saving investments and they then claim the benefit and continue with the old scheme. So majority of the employees will be benefited under old scheme only. However, in certain scenario where the person is, for whatever reason, is not able to have the tax saving investment, in that case it will definitely help. New scheme will definitely help him. So that's the difference. I think I've covered almost everything for the day. We may move to question answer. In the limitation of time, we might, and I'm sure the topics or the points which we have covered, it is useful, and it will added some value to you. So ITR 1 is applicable only if you have one house property and interest, income, and the salary. If you have only these three categories of income, then you can file ITR 1, which is the simplest form. If you have any additional income, if you have a house, if you have capital related income like share trading and all, you are required to file form 2. And if you have a business income, obviously other forms are available. So mainly ITR 1 is applicable only if you have single house and the interest income apart from salary. So as I mentioned, also dividend income till last year it was tax free. Even though it was tax free in the exempt income, it was required to be reported. Hence, not just dividend, which all the exempt income are required to be reported, including interest received from PPF or income received from tax free bond. All the exempt incomes are required to be reported. So, particularly for house refurbishing, I don't think you'll able to claim any benefit. However, you can talk to your employee and then restructure the salary. You may ask them to include certain reimbursements like magazines and publications, or typically for staff welfare related like hotel bills and all. If you are more often spending during your client visit or meeting with client or conveyance related thing. Those things you can definitely talk to them, but no
Okay.
other things. So EPF will have benefit. So EPF has two benefits. One is deduction under ATC, and second is with respect to uh, the interest income earned on PPF, which is completely tax free. So depending on your salary structure or the cash inflow or income inflow you have, you should opt for, because PPF has a longer period of lock-in period. So based on those criteria, you should decide. No, so for the tax purpose, it has a clear rules that if you are in India for more than 180 days, you are tax resident in India. Uh, it will be taxable, because now your residential status is you are tax resident in India, and all your income, global income, is taxable in India, except for the wherever DTAA is involved, but it will be taxable. That
So I'm not
that
sure.
time limit is available for converting your investments, but not with respect to the tax benefit. I think we discussed this in detail, considering all the facts. When did you return back, and how much time you have spent, and accordingly we can decide. There are two categories. One is ordinarily resident, and another is not ordinarily resident. So, and it will take little longer, and I might have to take a lot of inputs to comment on 60 years or so. Under the old tax regime, I think 2 years or 3 years back, they have broken the senior citizen category in two further categories. They have introduced the concept of super senior citizen, uh, defined as senior citizen. So all persons who are aged as 60 years and more are senior citizen. However, for the basic exemption limit, there is additional benefit given to the super senior citizen with the age who has more than 80 years of who are more than 80 years of old. So only one additional benefit available for the people more than 80 years old. All other cases, it is 60 years. So generally, the stand taken is so it depends on the what is the arrangement. In India, most common thing is second name is added just for the safety purpose. So as long as it is only for the safety purpose, you are not required. The first holder will have to report that account. So generally, in case of all the salaried people, we suggest that in case of a saving account, let's just report wherever you are a first holder. No, I would suggest avoid doing that. So especially when the first holder, the more transaction or the salary of the second holder is deposited where the name is second, I suggest avoid that. Have a separate bank account and do it. It will have tax impact. It will be difficult to put it in the second holder's name. So my suggestion is do not get into those kind of a transaction. So rebate is applicable in the current tax regime. As you are aware that in the last budget, government announced that there will not be any tax for the people having income up to 5 lakh. So if your total taxable income is up to 5 lakh, even in that case, there will be benefits. So when we calculate tax on a basic exemption limit is only 2,50,000, so there will be a tax liability for income more than 2,50,000. So rebate under section 87A is available where your income is less than 5 lakh. So you claim that rebate and effectively your tax amount becomes zero. So this 5,000 is not an additional limit. It is part of the overall limit. So if suppose your insurance premium is just 15,000 rupees, so you must be claiming only 15,000, which is well
Okay.
below the total limit of 25,000. So in that case, you can claim this additional amount. However, if your premium amount itself is more than 80 limit, you will not be able to claim this additional benefit. Organization consider this additional deduction. A lot of them avoid considering it. So in that case, so in the first case, you can have medical prescription, the bill received from the chemist, you can use the bills. Do take bill or get a receipt from the doctors where you generally visit. So those can be considered as preventive health checkup. If you are getting blood test or any other thing, so you can use those receipts as well. In the first scenario, if your employer is accepting it and asking for the supporting. In the second scenario, if they are not accepting this, you still can claim this additional in while filing your return. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Falgun.